Hi there, my name is Pat Fader. Thanks for taking the time to watch this screencast. I want to talk about group policies today. I might talk about preferences as well, what we'll see. But originally when I started to create this screencast, I had the students in my capstone project in mind when I created it, but about halfway through I realized that this would also be beneficial for the students in my Server 1 class to watch. So thanks for taking the time to watch this. I hope you learned something from it. My assumption is that you've already gone through and learned a bit about group policies. You know that they can be used. You know that they're used in an Active Directory environment to configure computers and manage computers as well as user accounts. So I want to just talk more about the demonstrating how we would go about using group policies, as well as just talk about, for example, like how their group policies are being processed. And I will try to primarily work off a virtual machine as opposed to just running through a slide deck. I have like a total of 6 slides on group policies or so this it's not too bad. The first thing that I wanted to point out is when you first turn a machine on, you always hear this LSDOU or LSDOW, or people have different ways of pronouncing it, but basically when you first turn a machine on, the local policy on that computer is processed first, and then if that computer is a member of a domain, your domain level group policies are applied, followed by your OU level group policies. And what ends up happening is the last one always wins. So if you have a setting at the OU level, a group policy applied to an organizational unit, if it conflicts with anything in your local policy, well then guess what? The OU level policy works. So I thought I would demonstrate that first. It's also possible to have multiple group policies applied to the same OU, in which case there's actually a link order, and the group policy towards the top is the one that is applied last, which means that it would override or take precedence of the other group policies. And finally, just a bit more background. I think this becomes more clear as I demonstrate it, but you all know that group policies are broken up into 2 pieces, both a computer policy and a user policy. You'll see that, well, I'll talk about it, but the computer policy is applied first, and then the user policy is applied second. So guess what? If there's anything in the user policy that conflicts or is, relates to the computer policy, the user policy is the one that wins in that instance. That's a bit of the background. I think I can just right now kind of kick off and do a demo and just talk about local policy versus OU policy. So in preparation for this, I just created, I'm using our virtual machines from Server 1 and Server 2. And on this domain controller, I created a few OUs. I created end users. So I have a network specialist OU, and in that I have a staff OU, Lane and Pat in there. And I have a student, Steve Webster, my student's OU. So we'll use those in a little bit. And I have an OU created for my servers. I created a Milwaukee campus and West Campus OU, and you'll see that my Milwaukee campus OU has our server in it, Server 2, this one right here. And I actually have no servers in the West Campus just because I only have 2 virtual machines set up for this. But anyways, I can use this structure here to illustrate what I want to talk about with group policies. So for starters, we're going to just talk about local policies and how they're overwritten by group policies. And I was trying to think of the best way to do that. And let me just log in here real quick. And that would be, I'll just modify a local policy on this machine here, and then we'll see that it takes effect, and then we will create a group policy to overwrite that. So let's open up the local security policy on this machine here. So you would see these settings on any computer, not just one that's a part of a domain. This is the local security policy setting, so it resides on a machine in a work group as well as a machine in a domain. And I'll go under user rights, allow log on locally. That's an easy one to work with. And in our example here, what I thought I would do is let's just remove the users group. Good. And I am going to, because I don't want all users being able to log onto my servers or onto the server, and instead I'm just going to have my student Steve Webster. He's actually an employee here now. He used to be a student. So at this point on this machine here, let me hit the apply button. When I restart it, users, typical users won't be able to log on unless you're an administrator, a backup operator, or Steve Webster. So let's, for that, let's just try that first, see if it works. I'll pause it. All right, we're back. So for starters here, I'll just log on. I'll try to log on as one of my other user accounts that I created. So one of them was Davis L. And basically, because of that local computer policy setting, Lane is unable to log on this machine. But if you happen to be Steve Webster, you can log in. All right, that's amazing. So let's go back. So at this point, all that I have established is that I can modify, or I can change the local security policy setting on a computer. It gets kind of tedious if you have 50 machines and you have to go to each one and make a setting change. So let's see what we can do through group policies. So to do that, I'm going to go to our group policy management console here, and you can see that I can actually apply group policies to sites, to domains, and at the OU level. Sites, basically, they're outside of our Active Directory logical structure. Sites represent more of a physical structure, so you could apply group policy to machines based on perhaps their IP address, their physical geographic location, as opposed to this logical structure that we're creating in OU in Active Directory here. But I am going to, let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to I've decided that, let me see here, yep, that in my environment, I'm going to make a GPO, group policy, and we're going to control who can log on locally in our environment here. So let me edit this. You see right away that in this group policy, like I mentioned previously, there's both a computer and user settings. Computer settings get applied first, user ones get applied second. There's also something with preferences, and I think I'm going to save that for a different screencast. I have plenty to talk about before getting into preferences. All right, so security settings, user rights assignments. All right. Currently, all these settings are undefined, which means that the local settings will take effect. Not anymore. So we are going to define our who is allowed to log on locally. So if I hit the apply button right now, nobody would be able to log on locally. And I think what I'll do real quick is let's just see what we should set up. Let's see how we should. I can't talk. Let's see how we should go about setting up who can log on locally here. Oh, I'm logged on to Steve. I'll pause it and I'll log back on as an admin. 1 second. Now I always see things I want to just kind of pass on. Well, initially when I started logging on to this server here as administrator, it defaulted to logging on to locally. I don't want that. I want to log on to my domain. The reason it defaulted to a local logon is I have a administrator account locally, and I've also got one in my domain. I probably should rename this account in my domain at least, but anyways. All right. So let's look at the local security policy setting. All right, administrators, backup operators, and Webster. So now, as far as our group policy goes, I'm going to allow the local administrators group, hopefully I spelled that right, to log on locally onto that computer. I'm going to allow the backup, spelling counts here, These first two accounts I listed are they're actually the local accounts on my server. And now what I want to do is I'll add one more group. Let me hit the browse button. So now I'm looking in Active Directory, and I will add the GG faculty group to log on locally onto my servers. So after I apply this group policy, I will, in theory, be able to log on if I'm a faculty person, which means if I am Lane or Pat Fader, I can log on to my server, the server 2. So let me hit the apply button here. I had a note about group policies and how they apply. I mean, just if I look at this slide real quickly, group policies apply when you turn them on. When the user logs on, that's the user half applies. In the background, every 90 minutes on your client machines, the group policy will be updated, and they actually throw a 0 to 30-minute random offset in there. So basically, you don't want all your servers or all your machines all updating their group policy at the exact same time. You could also update your group policy with GP Update, and you can do it through this our Group Policy Management Console that we were using earlier. So there's a number of ways for updating your group policies. In our case, I think for the first one, I will just do a GP Update. So I'll do it in PowerShell, so that way you can see what I'm typing in. GP Update. All right, so if I just run GP Update like this, it'll only apply the group policies that have changed since my last GP Update. Okay. Or you could actually run it with this force switch here, which means just reapply everything. So anyways, either one works. I have in theory, I've applied my group policy update, and there's a couple ways of testing it. I could use another command, GP result. Oh shoot. I just had to look up the command on the switch, so I ran GP result /R, which basically tells me on this server here that my allow logon locally group policy was applied to this machine, as well as my default domain policy. I could verify that easy enough. I could just lock this machine real quick, and I could attempt to log on. I have a couple ways of demoing. I could first try logging on as Steve Webster. Webster S. Okay, that's not allowed because our group policy, our new update of group policy, prevents Steve from logging on, but it should allow my two faculty, Fader and Lane Davis, to log on. Let's try this. All right, so that worked. I also could have, actually this is kind of interesting. Well, that's cooking. Let me just do one more thing here. I could actually, back from this group policy management editor, I can, GPMC here, oops. Here, Group Policy Management Console, I could look at my group policies results that applied to my, that have been applied to my machine. Now, I have two ways of looking at the group policies that applied to my users or groups, my computers. I can either use group policy modeling, which is kind of like, in theory, this is what should have happened, or I can use group policy results, which is not in theory, but show me the actual results that were that were applied to that computer. So I kind of like using both. We'll do the group policy results first, and this actually, it's kind of cool because it allows me to talk about group policy starter objects. If I just initially say, okay, this is a great thing, let me run this group policy wizard, next, and I want to display the results from a different computer, which one? Server 2. Next. we're going to have a firewall issue. And then we're going to use a group policy starter object to configure a firewall. So how cool is that? And I'll even talk about doing it in PowerShell as well as through the GUI. Failed to connect. Okay, that's cool. Darn firewalls. So let's work on that real quick. All right. Okay, Pat. Here we go. All right, I'm going to modify just the servers in my environment. So I'll create another group policy and I will link it here. I think our last one was linked at the Milwaukee campus. Oh, okay. I'll do it right here. Oh, starter GPOs. So just create starter GPOs folder. They give me a couple to start with. I want to actually I think I just need to use one of these, and that would be group policy reporting firewall port. So this is, if I use this, these settings in here, it'll allow me to, no, yes. Maybe I'll just do both. One of them is for allowing you to remotely update your computer through here. That would be this top one, and the bottom one would be just allowing you to read back the group policy settings that have been applied to your machines. And what I was thinking is, I think this top one here actually includes all the settings that are in the bottom one. So, but anyways, let me just apply these. I'll apply both group policies here. So I'm going to go back to my server, and I'm going to create a GPO and link it here. Starter object. GP remote update firewall. All right, good. All right, so I just applied a group policy, and I'll make one more. GP reporting firewalls. All right, good enough. Got a whole slew of group policies. As long as we're at this screen here, you can see that at my server's OU, I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 group policies applied here, and I also, this OU is going to get the default domain policy. So as far as precedence goes, the default domain policy gets applied first, followed by the group policy reporting firewall group policy, followed by the number 2, number 1. Basically, going back to that whole precedence thing, the last one that is applied, its settings will take precedence over anything else. So if there's anything in the allow logon locally that conflicts with the other 3 group policy settings, this one will win. So we go from the bottom up, and you can actually, if you want to, if you look at the specific OU, and you could say, you know what, this is the most important one. These settings here should override anything else. I can move it up to the top if I want to. All right, so I can change the order, the link order. In our example here, it won't matter a bit because the settings in all 3 of these they won't conflict with each other. Okay, good. So I now should be able to apply my group policies and see something here. So what I'll do is I'll go back to this machine here, and let's just update our group policy settings. There are times you have to restart a machine, but I'm pretty sure I can just do a GP update here. Oh, who am I logged on as? I'm going to log back on as administrator. I'll pause it. All right, so we're logged on as the administrator. Let me just reapply our group policies now. And let's just see if they were applied. Okay, applied group policy objects. So I've applied all these group policies to this machine, which allows me to go back to what we were talking about earlier about group policy results and modeling. If I want to now, I could actually from here just get more information about that. So let's check. We'll just see what group policies were applied and what their settings were. It actually lets you look at the group policy settings based on who logged in as well. In our case, it doesn't matter because we're looking at computer settings, but we will just pick the administrator. Okay. Oh. All right, let's see here. Details. Actually, so there's no errors detected. That's good. But let's look at our details. And okay, applied group policies, allow log on locally, default, etc., etc., etc. So if I look at the allow log on locally, it'll actually show me, is that what I want there? Oops, not this one. Settings. There we go. Is that it? My goodness gracious. All right, so if I'm looking at the settings, local policies. All right, allow log on locally. Administrators, backup operators, and MATC faculty. So anyways, if we want to, we can use this to show what group policies have been applied to our machines. Good? Good. All right. Let's go back to where we were in our demo now. All right, so so where we're at so far, we have modified our allow log on locally user right on all the servers that are in our servers OU, allowing the members in our faculty global group to be able to log onto that machine. We also talked about starter GPOs, and I thought of what I could do here real quickly is just illustrate a few more things about group policies that sometimes are kind of brushed over. So the scenario is this, the Milwaukee campus is like, well, this is stupid. I don't like you forcing us to not allow Steve Webster to log onto our computers, our local policy. So one of the things that you can do is you could actually block inheritance on OU, which says, I don't care, all of these other group policies will not be applied, not be inherited into our OU. So by me blocking inheritance here, and now when I update my group policy, we're basically blocking all those group policies that we created from being applied. So once we do this, we can take a look at the results and apply group policies, not applicable. We've blocked them all. Now, as far as seeing if Steve Webster can log in and log out, I could lock my machine. Sometimes, like I said, you might need to restart it, but oh no, good enough. So now we see here that Steve Webster is able to log on, and our other groups are not. Interesting. It's the way it's supposed to be, right? So that's what block inheritance is. You also, as an administrator, perhaps in an environment where one person has complete control over this OU, there's still an enterprise admin or a domain admin that has complete control over the entire domain. She could say, you know what, that's not good. We are going to enforce all of these group policies, which means, like it or not, you're getting them. Good enough. So with that said, We can re-update our group policy settings here again. We're getting there. It's done. So now when I look at apply group policy objects here, let's see. Where'd you go on me? Apply group policy objects. We've got our 3. I'm curious now if we look under our user rights assignment. I might need to restart the machine to get this. I'll pause it and restart the computer. Because I'm just kind of curious now to see if this user rights assignment will reflect our updated group policies. I think it will, but we'll see. All right, so I restarted my machine, and just, sure enough, we show that that the faculty are now able to log on locally. So our group policy is overtaking, or our group policy is being enforced on all of the machines in the Milwaukee Campus OU, and that's because although the Milwaukee Campus OU attempted to block inheritance, we enforced all of our group policies to be applied down. So that's good. Let me take a look at my notes real quick. So we talked about group policy processing, the order that things are implied. So we kind of run through the list this way. Anyways, it says here, for example, when you turn the PC on, local site, domain OUs, and then at the end, any GPOs that were enforced get applied last. So basically, if you have an OU an OU that's enforced, it gets applied last, which, as you know, the last one always wins. After all the machine ones are applied, the same process applies to your configuring your user's environment. User logs in, local GPO applies first, then the site, domain, OU, and then finally enforced users as well. Good. So we've talked about, we've looked at the local GPO, we've looked at modifying it. Modifying group membership, this is just like a 2-second thing. I think this is actually, I know it is, it's a part of the Capstone project. It's super easy, and I just thought it's quite practical that there are times that you'd want to control the local administrator account on a set of machines. So you want to give certain people the ability to log onto a machine, have full administrator privileges without making them a domain admin. So we can basically modify local group membership to do that through group policy. So how do you do that, Pat? Well, here you go. I'll make another OU. Local admin membership. And actually, before I forget, let me just turn this off. Otherwise, so now at least I don't have to enforce this local admin. All right, good. There's not much for settings yet in this. Let's edit it. And administrative templates, I think. This may be a time for me to pause and refresh myself as to where I can modify Windows components. There's a lot of settings in group policies, thousands. I feel like every time a new update comes out, they give you more settings. So let me just pause this. Well, that took longer than I thought. Anyways, it's under Windows, Security Settings, Restricted Groups, and it's super easy. So I want all the members in my GG faculty group to be local admins. Browse. GG faculty. All right, okay. All right. Wait. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Let me get rid of this. All right, here we go. So members, I don't want I don't want to alter the membership of my GG faculty group. What I want to do is I want to make the GG faculty group a member of my local administrators account. Administrators. Done. Okay. That was easy. So now if I go back to server 2 and restart it, we will see that all of my faculty are now local admins on this machine here. So I could restart. All right, so my machine restarted. If I go into computer management here and look at the local administrators group on this machine, administrators, domain admins, which you'd expect, and then MATC faculty. Okay, so now the MATC faculty are all administrators on this machine, so they can do software updates, hardware, whatever it is. They can manage this server. So this is a way of giving them complete control over this server without making them domain admins. All right, let me just jump back to this PowerPoint that I was, or this presentation here to see if I missed anything else that I want to talk about. So we've talked about modifying group membership as well. It's quick, it's easy. I thought it's kind of cool to show. I've talked about starter GPOs, and I could have used PowerShell to update my starter GPO, to create a GPO as well. And I thought I would just show you this real quickly that the nice thing about PowerShell is at least you're not documenting all these, like, you know, click here, click there type steps. So we could just go to our server 1, PowerShell. And that's run as administrator. Here it is. Just paste it in there. Make it a bit bigger. All right. It's not going to work right away. If I try to run this, you know, it's going to run this commandlet that's going to create a new firewall rule called configuring firewalls for GP update. And I'll put my name in there, my initials. As far as the starter GPO goes, this is it. The only thing is we're basically telling it where to link that new GPO. And the target currently is in the wrong. That's just what we found online. You know, that was their example domain. I want to make this match our domain. So this is called the distinguished name, and I'm just going to have to update this with the distinguished name of our OU that I want to have this group policy apply to. And I think the easiest way of doing that is get 80. Here, let's do this. Let me just tell PowerShell to show me all the OUs that currently exist in our domain. And I want to have this, let's see here, students, support. Here, I have a server's OU, and the distinguished name is OU equals servers 112 PRI, basically this right here. Copy that. Can I paste it here? I don't know if it'll work or not. That's easy. So that's the distinguished name of the OU that I want to have this GPO applied to. So now I can run this. I didn't see any red. That's a good thing. I could go into our group policy management console here. What is this from? Something else, right? I've got so many things open here. Let me, I think we're good now. So, that's an old one. I'm just gonna, here. I had a couple of these open, which is causing some issues. I don't see it yet. Sometimes you just need to refresh it. So let me just view, or that's not it. So let me just under action refresh. There it is. All right. So this is the group policy we just created through PowerShell. Point is, you know, once you've kind of figured out how to use it, it does make it easier on future machines just to run this as opposed to, you know, clicking in 1,000 different spots. And you can push this out obviously through a group policy as well. So we've talked about starter GPOs. Loopback processing, I'm out of time. I'm not going to demo this, but here's the deal. Sometimes in an environment, when a user logs onto a machine, you don't want their user group policy to apply to that machine. The example would be you're at a kiosk, at a library, at a store or whatever, and they have a Windows-based machine that's a kiosk where multiple people log into. Maybe it's more for general applying for a job or searching for a book at the library, whatever it is. But you don't want that user's profile to be group policies to be applied to that computer. So you can enable this thing called loopback processing. It's a group policy setting that would apply to your server or your computer, your client. And if you enable it, you have two modes. You can either put it in replace or merge mode. Essentially, what that'll do is it'll say, when you start to process the group policy settings here, turn the PC on, apply the local machine ones, and all the computer-based OUs. When you get to the user half of the group policy setting, it will, it'll basically, Active Directory. So when it gets to, let's say in this scenario here, Pat Fader, that's me, I am in the staff OU, and I'm logging on to a server that's in the server OU. So when I log in, the first half of the group policies are all the computer-based group policies, the computer half of the group policies that are all linked to my server's OU. Good. And then when it begins to process the user OU group policy settings, it looks at all the OUs that are applied to the network specialist, or I guess the staff OU here, and all the user side get applied when I log in. If you enable this this loopback processing, what you're telling the Active Directory to do is ignore any group policies that are linked to the staff or to Pat Fader's account. Instead, only look at the user side of the group policy settings that are linked to the server's OU. So if there just happens to be any user configuration settings in any of these group policies here, they will now apply to the user when they log in. So you're ignoring the user's location in Active Directory completely, and you're only using the group policies that are linked to the server's to the server OU. Now, of course, as Microsoft, they have to have it has to do everything. That would be if we are in replace mode. If you're in merge mode, it's like they couldn't figure out what they wanted, so they said, you know what, go through, do this, do all this as you normally would, but then go back and repeat steps 7 through 12 all over again with the user group policy settings that are in the server's OU. So it's kind of like you do everything normally, then you go back one more time and you look at all the group policy settings that are applied to the container or the OU where your machine resides, and you apply those as well. So that's loopback processing. I've talked about it. You can look more into it on your own, and eventually I'll record a screencast on group policy preferences, which are really cool. They're designed essentially to get rid of logon scripts, and you can do all kinds of neat things with them. So anyways, it was long. I thought this was going to be a lot shorter. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. I hope it was helpful. And if anything, give an appreciation now. There's this incredible amount of things that we can do with group policies. We have a lot of flexibility in how they're applied through either that loopback processing, or we talked about being able to block inheritance or enforce group policies being applied. If I had to think of something that always confuses my students when we talk about group policies, there's a couple simple ones. They always see the default domain policy. Don't mess with that. If you're gonna do something, just to create a second group policy at your domain level and apply it. That way, if you mess things up, you can simply delete the group policy. Other thing that seems to confuse students is there's also a domain controller OU that's created when we install Active Directory, and there's a default domain controller policy. So this one is different than this one, and obviously the default domain controller policy applies to my domain controllers. In this case, server 1, that's the only domain controller I have in this environment. So that kind of messes students up sometimes. Also, if we decide to delete a group policy, delete it. Are you sure? Yep. It actually didn't delete the group policy, it just deleted the link to it. If I look under my group policy objects, these group policies reside here still. So I can delete all these, or I can apply them somewhere else. And I'm not going to actually delete the group policy object itself, just the link to it. Very good. Thanks. Have a great day.